everyone. I am Rajarshi Palit, PGT Economics from JNB BCom. Today we are going to learn about the determinants of demand of a particular commodity. So let us start. So the learning objectives of this particular presentation is that the learners will be able to state the various determinants of demand. That means they will be able to tell that what are the various determinants of demand. Then they will be able to explain the relationship between the quantity demanded of a commodity and its determinants. They will be able to tell the relation between the various determinants of demand and what impact these determinants will have on the quantity demanded of a particular commodity. Then the learners will be able to define what are substitute goods and what are complementary goods. That means they will be able to clearly state the definition of these two goods, substitute goods and complementary goods. And finally, the students will be able to distinguish between substitute goods and complementary goods. Now let us look into the various factors which affect the demand of a particular commodity. The first one being the price of the commodity. The price of the commodity has been shown here with the symbol Px. Price of the commodity is Px. Price of related commodities is Py. Income of the consumer is one more factor which affects the demand of the commodity. And lastly, we have tastes and preferences. So these are the four factors which affect the demand of a particular commodity. Number one is price of the commodity. Number two is price of related commodities. Number three is income of the consumer, represented with a capital M. And finally, we have the taste and preferences of individuals. So let us take these factors one by one. First is the price of the commodity. The price of the commodity is one of the most important factors which influences the demand of a commodity. That means whenever the price of a commodity is very high, the consumers, they have a tendency to buy less of that particular commodity. And when the price of the commodity is low, then people, they prefer to buy more at lower prices. So that means we can say that there is an inverse relationship between the price of a commodity and its demand. That means price and quantity demanded of a commodity, they move in different directions. If the price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and if price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. Now let us come to the price of related goods, the second factor which determines the demand of a commodity. Now what are related goods? Related goods can be of two types. Number one is substitute good and number two is complementary goods. Now substitute goods, they can be defined as goods which have to be used in place of one another. That means we can use one good in place of another. For example, we have taken here tea and coffee. If the price of tea increases due to some reason, then people will have a tendency to switch over to the use of coffee. So that means when the price of tea will increase, its substitute being coffee will find an increase in its demand. That means for every rise in the price of tea, there will be a corresponding increase in the demand for coffee. Next, we come to complementary goods. Now, what are complementary goods? Complementary goods are those goods which are used together to satisfy a particular demand. That means those two goods have to be used together. The example that we have taken up here is fuel and vehicle. So when the price of petroleum increases, there will be a fall in the demand for vehicles that run on petrol. Or when there is an increase in the price of diesel, there will be a fall in the demand for vehicles that run on diesel. Now let us see the diagrammatic presentation of change in the price of substitutes. So when the price of a commodity increases, the demand for the substitutes will increase. That means whenever we see an increase in the price of tea, this will have a corresponding increase in the price of, in the demand of coffee. That means when the price of tea increases, people, will give up the use of tea and they will buy more of coffee. So for an increase in the price of tea, the demand for the substitutes will increase. Next is change in the price of complementary goods. How the change in the price of complementary goods will have an impact on the demand of a particular commodity. Suppose we have petrol and demand for automobile. On y-axis we have taken the demand for petroleum, and on the x-axis we have taken the demand for automobile. So when the price of a commodity increases, the demand for its complementary goods will decrease. That means whenever there is an increase in price of petrol, then the automobile that runs on petrol, its demand will be less. That means people will not buy vehicles that run on petrol if petrol starts becoming more and more expensive. Next we come to the income of the individual. That means how the income of an individual is going to impact the demand of a particular commodity. So from here we can see that if the income of an individual increases, the price of other commodities remaining the same, we will find that its demand will increase. When the income of an individual increases, prices remaining the same, the demand of the commodity will increase. So we can say that income of an individual is also an important determinant of demand. Whenever there is an increase in income of an individual, prices remaining the same, demand of the commodity will increase. So we can say that there is a direct relationship between the income of an individual and the quantity demanded of a commodity. So let us see how the diagram pans out to be. We have a diagram which shows a direct relationship between the income and quantity demanded. Whenever there is an increase in the income, the quantity demanded will be more. At lower levels of income, the quantity demanded will be less. So as income increases, on y-axis we have taken up income. So whenever the income increases, we can see that the demand for the commodity will increase. The increase in income will always have a increase in the quantity demanded of that particular commodity. Next comes tastes and preferences. We always consume those commodities which we like and are in vogue. That means we never buy things which we don't like. So whenever we see a change in our tastes and preferences, that is going to have its impact on the quantity demanded of that commodity. If a particular commodity is in demand, if people think it is very good to buy a particular commodity, that will make them more fashionable, they buy that particular commodity. So when there is a favorable change in the taste and preference of a commodity, its demand increases, and vice versa. A commodity which goes out of fashion, its demand is also going to fall. Now let us recapitulate what are the things that we have learned. So demand of a commodity is determined by number 1, increase in the price of that commodity. If the price increases, demand will fall. If price falls, demand will rise. So price of the commodity is one factor. Then price of related goods is another factor which will have its impact on the demand. Income of individuals will have a positive impact on the demand of the commodity. Fourth is tastes and preferences. Then we have learned that there is an inverse relationship between the price of a commodity and its demand. That means when price increases, demand will fall, and vice versa. And when price of a related commodity changes, demand of the commodity will also change. Next is when the income of the consumer increases, demand of the commodity will also increase. That means when the income will increase, demand will increase. When income will fall, demand will also fall. So these are the things that we have learned today. And at last I have 2 questions. One is, what will be the impact of an increase in the price of trucks on the demand for diesel? And the second one is, define substitute goods and complementary goods. That means you have to write down the definition of substitute goods and complementary goods. So I hope I was able to make you understand. Thank you.